One of the questions that I often ask clients is, what is the desired outcome that you're looking for?
All right. I'm here with the one and only Jay Barnett. King Jay, thank you so much for being here, man.
Man, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate it, Aaron. This is good, man.
Yeah, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while. What's up, everybody? My name is Aaron Wexler, and welcome to another episode of Within the Game. Today, I'm joined by author, speaker, ex NFL player, marriage and family therapist, and mental health expert, life coach, and just just being on a mission to empower, inspire, and ignite fire into the minds of men and women across the globe, helping them to become their best selves. Jay, I just love that mission statement. So I appreciate you being here. And I'm going to jump right into the first question that I always start out with, which is, what does inspired living mean to you?
Man, I feel like inspired living means to me, man, living life authentically, man, living life, full, living life to the fullest, living life, on your terms, living life through your purpose, through your pain, through all of your different, challenges. I think sometimes we like to pick out the parts, that we want to live from, but I think it's important to live from all parts, right? And so it's living from the valley too, as much as we love to stand on the mountaintop. So that's what I think, living uh, or inspiring living is.
Yeah, man. Yes. I was telling you before we started, I became a fan of yours when I was watching this IG live you did with Q, with Quentin Williams. Shout
Yeah,
out
yeah, Q,
Q.
yeah,
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 man.
yeah.
And you just hit a chord in me when you were talking about healing. And I want to frame this conversation on this idea of healing and healing from something, right? Because I feel like we're all on a healing journey. So like, could you just talk a little bit about your healing journey and what brought you to this realm, this modality of healing?
Well, for me, Aaron, I think what brought me to this space in my life was really living from so many places of pain. And you're a former athlete as well, and especially for athletes, I think, as I was telling a friend of mine, when you're an athlete, man, you don't think about pain, right? I
Mhm.
mean, when you think about pain, it's usually physical pain, right? I don't want to run anymore. I don't want to do another squat. I don't want to do another power clean. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do another run. You think from the physicality of pain, but I think after football was the first time that I actually had to process my emotional pain. And the emotional pain became a weight. And as I've shared, through my story and about surviving two suicide attempts, and what brought me to that place was not processing the emotional pain that I had from the divorce of my parents, the rejection of my father, the physical abuse of my stepfather, and just so many other things that took place in my adolescent years that really shaped me and colored this picture of blackness. And when I say blackness, it's because even in a clinical setting, when most kids color about pain, it's usually very dark. You get the browns, you get the black, you get the very disgust. You don't get the yellow, the orange, the green, the colors that represents life. And so for me, I had this canvas that was colored very dark, which led me to attempting suicide twice. And I think kind of flirting and kind of engaging with the idea of going to therapy. And as I grew up a PK in the church, my father still is a pastor, and growing up in that space and not really understanding that there was other entities besides church. There were other spaces to process besides prayer, or other tools rather besides prayer. And got into therapy, man, and loved it. Tough at first, as
Mhm.
most men have this difficulty in being vulnerable. And
Mhm.
again, when you look at the program and just the way we have been socialized and how we have been uh, sort of guided it's always in the less you can show, the more of a man you are. And I now will challenge that to say, the more you can show, the more of a man you are.
Right.
So yeah, so yeah, and that led me, man, into going back to school, becoming a therapist, and after graduating, creating space for men and creating space for brothers to begin healing. Because when I was in grad school, man, I realized, man, if I don't put this out there, people would never know this type of information or even know the quality of life that they can have beyond addressing certain things. And I think what was a great shift to our society was the pandemic, because we had never, black, white, rich or poor, I don't think we as humans over the past 100 years had ever considered the emotional and mental elements of how we do life. We were focused on eating, providing for our family, getting to the next point in life. You know what I mean? So we weren't really thinking on the quality of life as being. We were really focused on the human doing part. Everybody was
Hmm.
trying to achieve the American dream. And I think the pandemic allowed us to look at the dream that we had attained, to see how much of this dream were we really in pursuit of, or did this dream that we had acquired, had it become a nightmare? And so many different things that I feel that took place for me to emerge as this person in the mental health space, as a therapist, as a black man, but just also as a voice, and as a face to say, this is what healing looks like. But as looking at healing, but also looking at, this is what everyday people need to be processing in order to become better, human beings in their lives.
Right. Man, I just resonate so much with everything that you're saying and what you're all about, man, because my whole message is stay inspired, right? And that doesn't mean like every single minute of the day, just where I'm like, oh, I'm so inspired all the time. For me, it means stay on the trajectory of just
Hmm.
being in that energy. It's really more of an
Hmm.
energy. And so I really feel the whole message that you're talking about, which is this I think your last book is Just Heal, bro, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that because it's like it makes me think of my next question for you, which is the idea of healing as a thing. Like, what is healing? Because I know you've had some injuries. I've had injuries too. So the first thing I think of healing is like, okay, we got to heal from our injury, right? We got to get back to balance,
Right.
homeostasis, you know. But there's so much more to unpack there, right? Like
Yeah.
you mentioned,
Yeah.
emotional intelligence and spiritual healing and all these different parts of healing. Could you go into that a little bit more and just unpack that word
Yeah,
healing?
from the athletic perspective, right? We all get asked that question when coach said, "Are you hurt or are you
Right.
injured?"
Right.
Right. So hurt is just kind of like, all right, I need a couple of plays off, or I just need a few days of rest. Injured is now, all right, we may have to examine this. Maybe you got to get an MRI. Maybe we need to, run some other tests. And so I think when you think about the healing part as the human and from the whole person, right, of more of a holistic view, you're looking at, what do you need to recover from? And many times we're not looking at healing as the recovery phase. We're looking at healing to get back out there. And so for me, healing is really just stop and pausing and examining not only just the pain, but what's causing the pain, right? I know my head hurt, but what is the reason that my head could be hurting, right? Did I eat something that triggered something? Did I have too much sugar? Am I dehydrated? All of those different things. Is there something else that's going on that I maybe need to assess on a more deeper level and go and get some blood work and some things like that? And so for me, healing is about recovering. Healing is about making better. Healing is about restoration. And I think those are the three phases of healing that stands out. Three elements that stands out to me is, what do you need to recover from? How do you need to be restored?
Mm,
What are those things that can be made better? Because until you have an understanding of what's wrong, you don't have clarity on how it needs to be corrected or how it needs to be made right. So healing for me, man, is layered. There's this process. There's this duality because you get the whole stuff that broke you, but also you get the inspiration, as you said, of
Mm-hmm.
being inspired
Mm-hmm.
to the same thing that broke you. What if this is the same thing that actually gives you the tools that you need to make you better? What if this is are the tenets that you're able to extract from the experience that allows you to become the person you need to become in order to succeed in the way that you choose? So, man, it's just
Mm-hmm.
so much, bro, that I
Right.
take in, and
Mm-hmm.
what I've grown to love about who God has really created me to be is that I have this psychological aspect. I have this experiential perspective. I have this holistic view. I have this spiritual view. I have this theology view. And what I love is that I get to bring all of these things together. And whether I'm talking to you, whether I'm talking to, because I've been interviewed by so many different people and being able to pull from those different things. And that's what I've been able to really embrace because healing looks different for everyone,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Because I've worked with people who have been molested, people who have gone through divorce, people who are living with a terminal illness, and healing oftentimes doesn't mean that you're trying to forget what happened. Sometimes it's remembering what happened to find understanding of what is happening in your present.
Yeah.
And so it's heal, man. I love to talk healing, man, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so unique because I remember a time where all I could talk about was football. All I could talk about was, looking at a defense and, trying to break it down. And, are they in cover two? Are they in zone? Are they in man? Are they in quarters? Is this a nickel defense? Is this a 3-4, 4-3? All of those different things, man. So now to really take this perspective in looking at looking at humanity, right? Is this psychological? What's happening, right? Is this biological? Is this mental? Is this emotional? Is this physical? So to that question that you asked, it's stirring up some stuff, man. So
Good.
this is a great question.
Good. Well, I love it. I think I really admire your authenticity and vulnerability, especially when you talk about suicide. I've listened to, a bunch of your content recently, and I just really admire that you can share from this deep soul place, right? And I want to actually dive into that a little bit more because, you know, I was thinking about this last night. When I think of healing, after all the things, right? The physical, the mental, the emotional, I want to talk about spiritual because the spiritual healing for me, when I think about that, and I'd love to hear your response and your takeaways from this, is for me, it's alignment with my soul.
Absolutely,
It's like true alignment, right? Because all
absolutely,
the other stuff that happens, it happened, right? Whatever it was, whether it's an injury or all those things. But when you get back to alignment with your own soul, now you're really healing.
absolutely, man. And really, when you think about the spiritual part of it, as I tell people, and I say this to preface this for those who may not be believers and those who have beliefs in other powers that be, and which is great. And I
Mm-hmm.
said that when God made mankind, He had our mental health in mind because He created us to be mind, body, and spirit. And once you understand that we are tri beings, you understand that you have to understand the power that resides in you, the power that you're able to exercise, and the power that's above you. And so the power that's above you, right, has to be this vertical relationship that you develop some way or fashion, whether that's Buddha, Hindu, uh, um, Allah, whatever that is for you, it has to be vertical. And as you align yourself vertically, that allows you to expand horizontally because
Wow.
my relationship vertically will always determine my relationships horizontally. And so you get this cross, this symbolic, right, of this cross, right? Because as I'm working on this, which is the alignment of the soul, this amplifies that. And the healing spiritually will always determine what an individual permeates because a compromised soul can't rest. It can't find stillness. And when I can't find stillness and I can't rest, it's hard for me to create stillness within myself. So all of my relationships become tainted. All of my relationships become very distorted. All of my relationship becomes very hostile, very toxic, and all of those different things, right? That we pull from these spaces where we have not found alignment. And
Mm.
once you have the alignment, that allows you to be able to adjust, that allows you to be able to extend grace, compassion, love, operating from peace, joy. And even in the disappointment, the alignment allows for me to feel that the disappointment is temporary, right? And so, again, the statement you made, that healing spiritually is about alignment in your soul because you live from the abundance of your soul or you live from the deficits of your soul is what I truly believe.
Right.
And so when you understand that as I'm healing, I have to heal my mind, which is what I remember. I have to heal from my emotions, which is how I process. But when I begin to heal my soul, I'm healing how I'm going to live and versus how I live, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
man.
so yeah, man, you got me teaching, brother. I feel like I'm in a
This is
life
great.
class.
No, this is great. It really is because we don't really explore this stuff too much, especially in athletics and
No,
entrepreneurship, which is
no.
the spaces that I'm in. And I'm loving this because, you know, I wanted to just share a little bit about what alignment means to me past the whole idea of being aligned with your soul's desires. I think it actually also moves into your daily thoughts and actions and your ability to speak from that place of alignment, right? Like to me, like that's such an important part of my life now. So I can do my alignment practice in the morning, I do my meditation, and I get aligned. I remember who I really am, right? And we're gonna get into identity in a minute because I think that all fits with this. But if you remember who you really are, that now you're aligned with your soul. So now all the thoughts and the words and the actions come from that place of alignment, right?
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, man. You hit it on, man. I mean, it's what I was doing this. I think I was talking to those athletes. I just posted a video today because the talk that I had with these athletes in Florida at Miami University, man, was so powerful,
Mm,
and we've been able to chop so many different clips, from it. And that was the one thing that I really spoke with them about is their routine. And your routine is always going to be centered around your belief system. And
hmm
your belief system is centered around, what you have bought into. What is the creed? What is the culture? Right? What is the landscape that you have developed to be the stable in which you live? So if I don't have a solid foundation, my landscape is a bit sketchy.
hmm
It's not well kept. Then it's hard for me to really align myself with thoughts that I don't agree with, because your mind, your body, your words, all of those things have to be unified in agreement that as I think it, I speak it, and as I speak it, therefore I live and I function in it, right? And so you hear guys make different examples metaphorically, speaking about you don't have to convince a dog to bark. That's just the identity of who he is. It's in his nature to bark, and so I think for us to understand that it's in our nature to really create the world in which we want to live in or that we wish to live in. And we create that world through our routine. We create that world through the words. We create that world through our thoughts. because your thoughts will govern your life, is what I believe.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I mean, but then too, right? And here's the other thing that I love from the spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
All of these things are laid out, right, spiritually, because so as a man thinketh, so is he.
Hmm.
So your thoughts drives your actions. Your thoughts drives how you live. And I think once individuals can find some type of sovereignty in how they want to live, now they can come in an agreement, right, with the thoughts that they're telling themselves. And most
Yeah.
of the times, Aaron, it's just we have not we have not discovered, right, how we really want to live. So a lot of these things just kind of hang, and we choose the low hanging fruit.
Hmm.
And the low hanging fruit is this is just the way it is. But the fruit that's higher is, well, how do you want to live?
Mm.
And to reach higher means what? You're probably going to have to climb, and which is what? The process. And the process is oftentimes the grueling aspects of getting the life that you want to live. It's often redirecting your thought patterns, but you can't redirect until you restructure. And without the restructuring, you need deconstruction first. So we
Mm.
got to tear down this old way of thinking. We have to tear down this old way of processing. And it's just like a computer system, right? It's only so much information that you can keep downloading before you push the hard drive, to crash. But
Wow.
we're like, and they're like, well, you need to update the system. We don't want to update because oftentimes to update your computer means you got to wait 5 minutes that you feel like I don't have 5 minutes. I need to use my computer now. And what we need to do is do a system update here in order to change the landscape of how we're living or how we see life.
Wow, that's really interesting because I was thinking about this again, prepping for this conversation about updating. I was literally using the exact same analogy of updating the software. For me, actually, let's talk about this for a minute. Now you mentioned it because I believe that you can update all day long, but I actually want to uh, ask you about deconstructing first because that actually makes sense to create more space for more updates, right? And just to go on that for a little bit further, any tools that you can use or share for those updates. Like for me, I really like affirmations. Before this interview, I was listening to some empowering affirmations. It helps me charge up. It helps me like, yeah, I am successful. I am a being of light, spiritually. I am here and now and present, that all that stuff I feel constantly updates me. But yeah, talk about deconstructing a little bit to create space for more of the update.
So when you look at deconstruction, right, you have to really look at the things that you need to remove that does
Mm,
not serve you for the future that you desire. One of the questions that I often ask clients is, what is the desired outcome that you're looking for, right? I want to be able to manage my thoughts. Okay. I want to be able to love my husband in a way or connect. So when I hear this is the desired outcome, now the next step is to begin deconstructing, meaning that what are the ways or what are the things that you have been using that has limited you from connecting with your spouse? So, well, I normally, when he leans in, I tend to pull back or I withdraw. So now we're going to have to deconstruct this model of withdrawing to being able to lean in. And leaning in is not easy for a person who often runs.
hmm.
So it's now I have to challenge what are you what challenged you from leaning in that's causing the apprehension or the hesitation? Well, I fear him rejecting me. Has he rejected you? No. So it's deconstructing the models of false and faulty belief systems. I have a feeling that if I show my vulnerable side when he's leaning in, that he may reject me. But here is this oxymoronic space. You're not leaning in, but you're wanting him to receive you, but you haven't given him an opportunity. So contextually, I'm laying it out because deconstruction doesn't mean that you go in and you start tearing things down. You show individuals on why it's not working, what is not working, and why it's not working, right? We don't need this right here. Okay, well, why do you think that? If we get rid of this, we can create more space and we can really put what you really want here. Now, this person feels, oh, now I can begin to see the bigger picture in the deconstruction. Because if you just go in there and tearing up stuff, people just kind of wait a minute. So I love to provide clarity and context. So that deconstruction model for those, that tool is looking at the things that don't serve you, looking at the things that are not working, looking at the things that are ineffective, and then begin removing them. After you remove them, you replace them with things that get you to the outcome that you want. If I'm wanting to connect with my spouse, I now have to deconstruct, which I need to remove walking away and replace it with staying. Well, I don't have anything to say, just stay. And if you stay, you now get to discover what is needed on both parties. So now you just reconstructed a model that you deconstructed, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. No, it really does. I love that. I love that a lot. I mean, no, what that means to me is create space for something new, and change your beliefs, right? I mean, everything is beliefs, right? You said that the
Everything.
thoughts become action. So if we want really good thoughts, we got to have really good beliefs. To me, that's subconscious, right? Like really working on the subconscious so that the beliefs,
Absolutely.
that belief system is there. So the thought process throughout the day is based on that belief system. And we can change the beliefs. We can just,
Yeah.
with this deconstruction and this updating of the new system, which is all personal growth stuff, which I love. This is the stuff
All
that I
personal
love.
growth, and this is why when I came out of grad school, that I knew that I had to, I had so many professors who was like, I think you're just trying to do too much with mental health. I think you're just trying to, and I'm just like, man, listen, I was in private practice for 2 years, and I said, this is not for me, because private practice limits you from expanding not just the clinical space and the therapeutic opportunities, but it limits you from expanding the language for those who would never go to therapy.
Right.
So somebody's going to watch this podcast and they're instantly going to feel like they went to therapy. And that's what I wanted to do, is to take therapy to people, because healing can take place anywhere. It can take place listening to your podcast. It can take place you listening to a conversation. You know what I mean? I've had people, I've sat in the nail place where I go to get my manicures and pedicures, and I'm just on the phone rapping one of my boys, and the lady says, well, I wasn't listening to your conversation, but wow, she's like, what do you do? She's like, because you were just talking, and this is just the way we talk, you know what I mean? So, and just to have people have a clear picture that mental health is just not a bunch of fancy words and a bunch of different terms that we pour from the DSM. Like, no, it's simplified commentary, right? I don't want to make it to where they feel like it's some esoteric, you know what I mean, to where they can't reach it and it's for this secret society. Like, no, I want to simplify this language for everyone. And if your interpretation is that it's personal development, if your interpretation is that this is healing, and if your interpretation is this is just professional growth, whatever you take from it, and you get to, just like if we were to look at a picture and I said, Aaron, what do you see? You said, I see a bird, Jay. And I'm like, man, I see a dog. It's abstract. So you have this abstraction of view that whatever you need from it, you're able to take from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. And that's what I love doing podcasts and doing. I've been offered so many things to do my podcast, and I
Yeah.
won't do it because I'm not a podcast person. That's just the real. But I love being able to provide that to other persons who have a podcast, because every person that I've interviewed with brings something different out of me.
Sure. Yeah.
Every, and people are like, dang, dude, you never say the same thing. And the one thing that I love is that in my quiet time, I love having revelation. I love looking at things and go, what can I pull out of this text that no one else sees?
Sure.
What
Yeah.
can I pull out of this conversation that no one else hears? And I think that's a unique thing that I wish, Aaron, that I would have tapped into this when I was an athlete. And of course, it's serving me well right now. But as you said, we don't get to to explore who we are as human beings because we're so focused on performance.
Yes. And actually, I want to talk about that right now, because I heard you talk about that before. Like we as athletes, let's talk about athletes now. We as athletes have all this pressure to perform.
Yeah.
Both men and women, all ages, we have pressure, right? And there's nothing wrong with winning. Winning is great. Winning is fun, but I would like you to kind of talk about that pressure, because that pressure is real. Because if we don't perform and if we don't win, we sometimes have fear of ridicule, or like, why didn't you do this? And then we feel like a victim a little bit, talk about that pressure and how we can deal with that better as athletes.
Well, I think how we can deal with that better as athlete is some things that I'm in the. I'm creating two things right now: University of Memphis and Tennessee State University, that I think that are going to be groundbreaking. But I think how we can better deal with that is we need to put things in place to allow these athletes to be able to process from their humanity rather than their from their performative state. I'm not going to say masculinity, but we often have created this interpretation that masculinity performs, femininity is being. So masculinity is doing, femininity is being. But what I think we have to do is begin normalizing that masculinity is both doing and being. And when you can do that, it allows guys to understand that it's okay if you have a bad game and you're not going back to your room, beating yourself up, smoking 2 or 3 blunts, looking for 2 or 3 chicks to process, rather than to say, you know what, it's okay. And what drives us into the rabbit hole is that we develop early on very unhealthy coping mechanisms. And so these unhealthy coping mechanisms eventually turns into these addictions. They eventually turns into these cycles, into these destructive behavior patterns that takes us down these dark places, and especially for men, because when we have failed or we feel that we are a failure and you don't have a healthy place to process, the next place that you're going to process is through the closest vice that you feel the most safe in.
Yeah. Right.
And for some men, that's, I'm going to drink myself till I can't no more. For some men, it's like, dude, I'm just going to do every drug I can get my hands on. And so I think what needs to happen is we have to start humanizing these athletes. And that's going to remove the pressure from them to feel like I have to be on 10. Who you are on the field is not who you need to be in real life. And I'll tell you something, and I'll give you two ends of the spectrum. You watch Kobe at the end of his career when he retired, and as I was one of the biggest Kobe Bryant fan,
Me too.
there he is. I watched Kobe sit on I can't the game. This was like the last picture they kind of had of him when he was with Gigi, and he had the bubble vest on, and he's sitting there, and he's leaning back with his daughter, Here's what I saw, Aaron. I saw a man at peace with what he had done, but then he was at peace with what he was getting ready to do and who he was
Mm.
becoming.
Wow.
So it was no longer about performing and being a black mama. Now it was about being dad, being husband, being a father, being a coach. And here's the other end of that spectrum. Love Tom Brady, but you're seeing a man who is wrestling with fate and who's wrestling with not wanting to walk away from what has already been detailed as the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of that is I don't know who I am outside of a performer.
Right. Wow. Wow.
And when men don't understand who they are outside of as a performer, you'll always be stuck on stage. And the reality of it is that life is lived backstage.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
so to answer your question, we have to humanize these athletes so they understand how to live their lives.
That's so eloquently well said, bro. I really appreciate that. Um, when something bad happens as an athlete, whether it's an injury, you didn't get playing time, you talk about this before, this Al Bundy syndrome a little bit, where like something bad happened. Or we'll talk about that because it's the flip side of that. When something good happens, right? You win, and, you know. But actually, I want to stay on this side of it. When those things happen in the past, I want to talk about victim mentality for a minute, because
Mhm.
we feel I felt I've definitely had this before. I've felt as a victim. That person did this to me. That happened, and I'm sitting with it. Or I didn't get this opportunity. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, now I have this perspective that nothing happens to you. Everything happens for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's a beautiful mindset shift to look back on those things. Whatever happened, doesn't really matter what it was, but whatever happened, it all happened for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the making of who you are. That's the making of becoming. And I think you have to have a overcomer mentality to not be the victim,
Hmm.
though you were victimized. But the overcoming allows you to have an understanding that even in my victimization, I'm still the victor.
Mm.
And to identify with my victorious or with the victor mindset, I'm looking at what can I take from this lesson?
Right.
What can I take from this experience? What can I take from this event? What can I take from this conversation? And I think when we have not been loved properly sometimes, to choose the victim mentality, again, is low hanging fruit.
Hmm.
To choose the victor, you have to reach higher. And so being a victim now becomes a part of my processing. And if you're not careful, if that's a part of your processing, you'll never look at yourself. You will always turn your back to the mirror that you need to turn to,
Mm.
because it's easy to point out it was him, it was her,
Hmm. It was the coach.
it was a coach. And like, me, you and I both probably had those experiences,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
know for me, it was a coach.
Right.
And I'll share this story when I was playing arena ball, and um, the first two games were great, did well. And this is after I left Green Bay, and and uh, and of course I'm wrestling. There's this dissonance with like, dang, dude, I gotta go down play arena ball because at this time it was like, if you got cut, release, whatever, they send you to arena. I think by this time they had wrapped up with NFL Europe. I think it was like on his last two legs. I think because it shut down the following year. So um, I fumbled in the game, and the team picked it up and scored. And I think this story is very timely for
Mm-hmm.
now. The
Sure.
whole victim thing, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So coach put me back out there again. I'm 24, 25, beating myself up over the head, mad. Coach like, get back out there. So I get out there and I gave up a sack. And I was, I rarely gave up sacks. And he looked at me like, get your head in the game, Barnett. And gave up a few more attacks. I could not get my head out of the game. And at that time, I was making myself the victim because I'm just like, you couldn't get out of your head. So I get the call, bring your playbook. Next day, I get cut. And it wasn't until years later, Aaron, that I now had an understanding of what was happening. Coach said to me, he said, I'm not cutting you because you fumbled. I'm cutting you because of how you responded
Right.
when you fumbled.
Wow.
Most of us, it's how we respond about the event that
Right.
determines where we are and how we move forward. And if you can't live or move beyond and processing in a way that you are not the victim, you'll always be the victim in every story. And that will be the sign you take around the world. It's, hi, I'm Jan and I'm a victim.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joe and I'm a victim.
Right. Right.
And the reality of it is that just because you don't, and for those that are understanding, even choosing the victim mindset, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because we often think, well, if I don't say this, no, it doesn't mean that you're not acknowledging that it happened. But I'm able to acknowledge what happened, but I'm also able to identify what it gave me to become better.
Right.
So, in that, I think that's a great, lesson. And of course, when I got cut, I was just like devastated, and I at the time I couldn't understand what he was saying. Well, I'm like, what you mean? How I responded? I'm like, dang, coach. And his whole thing was like, I'm okay that you were hard on yourself, but you were so hard on yourself that you were never able to get back in the game.
Right. Right. Right.
And some of us beat ourselves down so bad where we're never able to get back in the game of life. And one event changes our entire trajectory and I'm not saying that it didn't happen, and I'm not saying that you were not impacted by it, but I could close out on what you just said. It happening for you was really making you
Mm-hmm.
rather than it happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, man. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of responding rather than reacting,
yeah,
responding with love rather than
yeah,
reacting with defensiveness, responding with wisdom rather than reacting with just whatever just comes to your mind in that moment, responding with patience, responding with healing, responding to who from the place that who we really are. Right. Yeah.
yeah, man, that's good, bro. And then too, responding is also a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose to respond. There's no thought process in reaction. It's a knee jerk.
Right.
It's
Right.
a knee jerk, right? It's a knee jerk. You hit me, I hit you back. The response is you hit me, and then I have to process that if I do hit back, what happens after that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the response for those that are listening. And that's so beautiful. As you said, responding with love. And I would even take it a step further: is that we should respond to ourselves with more love, with more criticism than more criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Talk, hey, real quick. I mean, I have so much I want to talk to you about, but talk about that self-love, because for me, like, wow, I wish I knew that early on. I I I I hear that now and it just lights me up, because like you talk about looking at yourself in the mirror and talking about doing mirror work. Mirror work is so amazing. And like, just real quick for everyone listening, like, mirror work, I mean literally staring at yourself in the mirror,
Yeah,
literally,
man.
like just looking at yourself. And I didn't start this till recently, but this is a game changer.
Yeah, game
when i
changer,
first
bro.
when I first started mirror work, I got to about 5 to 8 seconds and I just was like, whoa, this is weird, this is
it's,
strange,
it's, it's eerie, man.
it's a little weird, right? And now, I still can't do it for that long. It's very intense. If you
Yeah,
stare at yourself like that, it's actually very intense. But now I'm doing it for longer, and I'm doing it out of this place of self-love, and it's
yeah, yeah.
extremely empowering.
Yeah, very, very, very empowering, man. I think when I started it, man, it was like, it was like 5 to 10 seconds, and it felt so awkward because it it wasn't awkward looking at myself. It was awkward in trying to believe what I was actually saying.
Wow.
You know, because to look at yourself and say, "I am a success," it's hard to believe when you haven't accepted the image that you're seeing, because you're again, uh you are critiquing certain parts, you know what I mean, of yourself. And I mean, I got into fitness modeling after football, and I did some competitive shows, and
Hmm.
I think got down to like 4% body fat, man. And
Oh,
I just
wow.
remember, you know doing this magazine shoot, man, some very fun stuff. But even then, right, 4% body fat, veins, abs, everything. But I can just still remember looking at myself like, oh, I turn around to the side, oh, I got a little fat right here. And it's just like it's a little skin there. And it's the right, it's this issue that we have with perfection. And for those that are listening, I would challenge them, as you just so eloquently put it, man, is the self love. When you hear it, people really don't give the breakdown of what it is. And what I liken it to is unconditional acceptance. That's what it is. Unconditional acceptance. One of the things that I was able to do through my healing journey, is learn to accept every part, the good, the bad, the ugly, the disgust, the stuff that's hiding in the basement, the stuff that you put up on the top shelf in the closet, the stuff that you hid under the big sweater. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
all of that, man. And so I think that's important for individuals to understand that self love, encompass, uh, or as the Bible likes to say, right? It covers a multitude of sins, but I like to push it even further, that it encompasses everything that we need in order to be fulfilled. Because if I can accept those parts of me, then I don't have to worry about others rejecting those parts because I've already accepted them. And why we don't accept them is because we think others would reject them. So we don't even acknowledge them. But can I tell you, until you have accepted all of you, you are not walking in real self love.
Wow. Wow. Love that. Absolutely love that. That really resonates. I know we have just a few minutes left here, Jay, but I did want to go back to that Al Bundy syndrome, because I think that's actually really, really relatable to
Yeah.
a lot of people. And I'm just gonna tell you how I took that, and then you take that. So, like, when we have these successes, whether we win a state championship or we win a tournament, or something was really amazing back in our youth or in the past, we tend to hold on to it maybe a little too long, right? Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you meant by that Al Bundy syndrome?
Yeah. Yeah. And two, is I wish, let me see, I can grab it. Hold on a second.
Yeah, go for it.
So these are my championship rings from
Let's
high
go.
school, college, all this stuff, man. So, they sit in the case and, I got other memorabilia, and stuff like that. And for me, this is just what it is. You know, this
It's
is
beautiful though.
memorabilia.
I mean,
It's beautiful,
yeah.
and I think, being able to look at this and accept that at that time in my life, it was a great moment. And being able to appreciate it, but also look at the moments that I've created beyond this.
Right, right.
So the moments now is looking at Just Hill Bro and Just Hill Bro being a tour, the Sherry Shepherd, the Charlemagne, all of these moments. And I think the Al Bundy syndrome is this is all I have.
Right,
I
right.
didn't do anything else beyond this. So when someone is talking about life and when someone is talking about where they are, who they want to become, I go back to this. This is what I did. In 2001, I was a champion. 2001, I was player of the year. And it's just, and it's one of those things where who did you become after those moments? And if those were your best moments, there's this empathy that I would say this sympathy that I feel with you that you did not create other moments beyond that. Because if I have to keep going back to those moments, then I have shortchanged myself out of life and its experience that it had to offer beyond that moment. And that doesn't mean that that wasn't a great moment, but life is about becoming. Who did you become after? Who did you become beyond? And
Mm,
so when I think about the Al Bundy syndrome, it's the inability to move beyond your greatest achievements.
right, right. Wow, man. Oh man. I want to touch on one last thing, and then I want to let you talk about your books and all your offerings and everything. Um, the idea of you mentioned I've heard you talk about depression. Now, I think this is relatable to a lot of
Mhm.
people out there, and identifying with that word. And it doesn't even have to be that word; it could be any word, right? But I'm just using that word depressed for this example. Um, you said when you tell your clients this, you say if someone comes to you and say, "Man, I'm depressed," you said, "No, I'm not. You're not depressed. You are experiencing depression. You are a divine child of the light of God, just experiencing depression." And I just really love that, right? Because I think a lot of times we use these words like that define us, going back to identity, right? That define us, and it creates that story, right? And I
Mhm.
think what you're saying is don't let these little experience these conditions create
That's
your
it.
story, right? This is just a condition. You can move through it, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
can use therapy, you can use affirmations, you can use tools around you, but don't let these words define you. I was
Yeah.
hoping you could just expand
Absolutely.
on that a little.
Well, yeah, because I feel like, man, and maybe some other clinicians will probably argue with me. I like to say depression is not a diagnosis, right? I think it's data. As the same as I say your trauma is not a diagnosis, it's data, right? The data tells you what is going on, right, beneath, the surface and what is going on beneath the wound. um, Depression is a symptom, right? There are symptoms that can help a clinician, psychiatrist identify that you may be in a depressed state. But even those symptoms, right, the depression is usually associated with an event, associated with the condition, associated with a circumstance or, something that has taken place. And I think whenever I have broken that down to clients, there's this weight that's dropped because
Hmm.
oftentimes they feel like they have to put on this jacket of depression and wear it like it's this beautiful coat that everyone is looking at and says, "Oh." because it's also the label too, right? That we use when you are not really clear on who you are, right? When it comes to your identity. And so I think being able to help people conceptualize and differentiate between depression and sadness has really helped so many people, man, because I'm not quick to just throw that on somebody. And I'm
Right.
not saying that you're not having thoughts of depression, like you're feeling like you're sad, you want to go to sleep. And they've even, the new studies have came out to even acknowledge that depression is not a biochemical, issue. It's circumstantial, it's situational. And for the longest, they were prescribing meds to people who said that they were depressed and giving them these medications that alter chemically their neurotransmitters, which is how we receive and how messages are transported. So it was shutting off certain receptors that were enhancing other thoughts and other beliefs, right? Because again, if I shut down your serotonin levels and I give you a medication to increase your dopamine levels, it's probably going to alter some other things within you psychologically.
Hmm.
So to really break that down to people where they say, wow, you lost your job. And rather than depression, it's really more that you're just concerned about what's going to happen with your finance. But you become overwhelmed about the concern of your finance that you become depressed, which limits you from looking for another job or putting yourself in position to redirect your career or course correct. It's all those, man, and people be getting free, bro. They be like, man, thank you, dude.
Right.
Because again, they start to say, man, I'm depressed. And I said, all right, well, why are you depressed? You know?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so even when I was in therapy, I knew my depression was associated with unprocessed emotion and feelings because I had never talked about how I felt about the divorce, about the abuse, about anything that took place in my adolescent years. So I was living in a very suppressed state that was amplifying, or should I say, that was the culprit of my depression,
Right.
you know. And
Right.
so, and I think what's important, man, as so many clinicians and doctors, we love to hinge and hold our hats on our heuristics and things that we've learned. But it's so important, man, to be open to understanding how can I meet the client where they are, not based on what I've learned, but based on what I'm seeing.
Sure. Wow. Wow,
So
bro. Man, l-
yeah, you made me teach a life class today, bro.
man, we could do a part two, part three. Um, Talk real quick, Jay, about this word that I heard you use at the beginning. You said fulfillment. To me, that just encompasses this whole idea of the living the inspired life, playing life like a game and playing to win and feeling good and having emotional intelligence and connecting and being aligned, right? Like all these things we talked about, that word fulfillment. Just briefly, just how whatever comes to your mind when I say that word, just talk about that for a minute.
Content.
Mm,
That's the word that comes to me. Content.
yeah, man.
Fulfillment is content. And fulfillment doesn't mean that you're complacent. Complacent is for someone who doesn't have a desire to move further than where they are or beyond where they are. But contentment is to say, I'm okay right here.
Right.
And it doesn't
Right.
mean that I'm not pushing for better, I'm not pushing for more. I'm okay right here. And I think a lot of us need to take Selah moments. When you study Psalms and you hear David using Selah moments, they are moments of pause, a moment to pause, as I like to call. It's a holy pause. And so contentment is just, I'm paused, I'm still, I'm not performing, I'm content. And the fulfillment is that in this moment, I am centered. In this moment, I am satisfied. And I think until you find that, right, it would be difficult for you to be satiated because you'll always be looking for something to fulfill you. And so fulfillment is just really, man, being content.
Mm, mm, mm. Mic drop. Boom.
Yeah.
Jay, talk about your books, talk about your
Yeah, man.
your websites, your therapy offerings, your social media,
Yes.
just all that stuff.
So yeah, man. My book, Just Heal Bro, Hello King, Letters to a Young Queen, Finding Our Lost Kings and Queens. These are books that I've all written. And the new release book, Just Heal Sis, will come out next year, which I'm finishing right now. But all of these books are available on Amazon. There's a few that are on Kindle if people still use Kindle. So, uh, and my website, if you're interested, in working one-on-one is kjbcoaching.com, kjbcoaching.com, which is KJ King Jay Barnett Coaching. So it's just abbreviated KJB Coaching. And then also for our tour, the Just Heal Bro tour, that is justheal.co. And so if you're interested in bringing us the tour to a city or bringing a tour to a university, you can go there for that. And so I'm just excited, man. Thank you, brother, for today, man. I enjoyed this, man. I felt like I just sat in a life class myself. And so, because most time when I'm speaking, I'm often talking to myself as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So no, this has been good, man.
This was beautiful, man. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for making the time. I will link all those things in this podcast. And for the audience, man, go check out Jay's IG. Just mention your Instagram because
yeah.
you
My
man, you put
Instagram,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, King J Barnett on Twitter. If I'm still on Twitter, if Elon Musk had not deactivated my account, I'm just joking. But King J Barnett on Twitter and King J Barnett on Instagram.
Yeah, and like I said, I will link all that. But man, your IG is awesome, man. You put so much beautiful content out there. I'm a fan.
Thank
I
you,
love
brother.
this conversation. Thank you so much. Don't
Yeah,
go
thank you.
anywhere. Give me 1 second for everyone out there. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. Peace and blessings, everybody. Appreciate y'all.